Hello and welcome to the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast. I can't believe it. We're back for season 3. We're going to bring you over 100 episodes, 2 a week, and we are back. It's Thursday, July 28th. We're going to cover it all. Top 4, relegations, transfers, everything. But first, Mike, I missed you, buddy. How are you?
It's good to be back. I'm great. I am a Tottenham Hotspur fan, and on July 28th, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but we have 6 new players. We haven't had 6 new players in the last 10 years.
Exciting time. And City have Haaland. Hey, the T1000 actually has a Terminator now.
T1000, I like it. He looks very Aryan. It's okay. We'll get into that.
Oh my God. His face is too small for his head. Everything is great about him. I worry about the way he walks. It's a little weird. He has a little bit of a Herman Munster. Anyway, but how he runs is all that matters. All right, Mike. What do you want to start with? Do you want to start with your team's wonderful transfer window, and then I will give you the other side of that transfer window?
There seems to be 2 competing narratives. The teams in the north, shall we say, City and Liverpool, are doing proper business, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
Just tweaking, turning knobs.
Yeah, well, that's really all you need to do when you're where at the stage that they're at. But for me, and call me biased, but I think the real story has been all over London. Right. Tottenham and Arsenal having their own arms race, all really splashing the cash and improving areas of desperate need, I think. And oh, by the way, Chelsea have made a couple of moves that are okay, but they have swung and missed more times than Joey Gallo. So I'm not sure
have gotten
what's
weird
going on
in Chelsea. Yeah.
But
let me just do a reset in case anyone, I mean, the season ended last week, I think, but let's remember. Right. City won the league on the last day of the season. We almost bottled it with the draw at West Ham, but the Mahrez penalty miss, and then going down to Aston Villa, but coming back, I cried again. Liverpool thought they won for a minute. In fact, Mo Salah almost thought he was winning the league, but he wasn't. Liverpool were on the path for a quadruple, but they end up with the 2 cups, the FA Cup and the League Cup. They lose to Real Madrid in the Champions League final 1-0. And let's just stop for a second and give a lot of props to Real Madrid. They had the toughest journey to win the Champions League I have ever seen in my life. And they still didn't deserve to win, but they won it. So good for them. That was amazing. Yeah. PSG, Liverpool, City, Chelsea. That's fucking good. Yeah. And they were down in every single one of them. Incredible work by them.
Very reminiscent of the Ajax team. And where they went through in like the knockout stage before they lost.
Well, I mean, when you're an underdog like that, you have to go out and beat people. So that's where the league is. The top 4, Arsenal were in the driver's seat. Then your team in the North London Derby really put the hurt on them. Arsenal really were overachieving and probably shouldn't feel too bad about where they are in retrospect. But in the moment, it really hurt them. And the youth of Arsenal that I called early in the season as they would get better as the season went on, they did. They just could never beat anyone ahead of them. And Conte transformed Spurs in a way that we haven't seen. Plus, he, I think, is an alpha male and just dominated Levy in a way that we haven't seen ever. I mean, I think Jose Mourinho was trying to do it, but was ineffective at it. And I think Conte really leaned on Levy, and Levy seized the moment of like, the stadium's ready, the thing is ready, this is all ready, let's now put the chips in, which I think he probably wanted to do 18 months ago.
So think about, there's 2 things at play, right? So to hit on your point, Mourinho did like mental warfare where Conte was like, I'm going to punch you in the fucking face if you don't give me funds. So, but by the way, Conte has been, if you run the clock back 12 months ago, Conte was their first choice. Conte and Paratici had a great relationship. Conte said no because he could not guarantee that he would get the funding that he wanted. And if you go back to everywhere he's been, Inter and Chelsea,
he makes it happen.
Places before that, Juventus, but he makes it happen. But he always, enough is never enough for him. He always wants more.
He will always complain.
One player, right? And I'm not. This is not a knock on him. This is what has happened, right? And so 12 months ago, you look at where Spurs were. They pass on him because, frankly, Conte and Levy had that basically battle, and Conte said, "I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm gonna take a couple of months off and hang out." And so they hired Nuno. Things go absolutely tits up. almost immediately after beating City on opening day, the whole Kane saga and situation. And then they're panicked. And so now he's got Levy over a barrel, and he's still talking to
almost goes to United.
And the famous Cristiano Ronaldo goal with nobody in attendance at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Yeah. They end up beating Spurs 3-0. Ole doesn't get fired. Nuno does get fired.
Right.
And they bring in Conte. And that's 5 years from now, we could be looking at that game as the
Wunderpunkt.
Just kind of the thing that turned the tide on a lot of these, different races that we've seen. So really an interesting thing. But yeah, so Conte has been in the driver's seat. He's had basically 6 months now, a full preseason, and six new signings. So
well, let's go one level up though. We love Spurs. It's very exciting, but we have to look at City. City pick up Haaland, the most coveted player in the world outside of Mbappe. They get that deal done during the season. It was done. They do it for 60 million. That's no problem. They bring in Phillips from Leeds for 45. That's really a replacement for Fernandinho. This is really like, hey, if something happens, he's a little bit better. He's a runner. He was hurt a lot for Leeds, but a liked player, bit more athleticism, bit of shithousery, bit of Englishness. Didn't want to leave Leeds unless it was to City. But really for City, I think the bigger thing for this winter has been, this offseason has been the players leaving. We saw Raheem Sterling, who's been there since 2015, leave. And now Gabriel Jesus leave to Arsenal. Zinchenko also leave after a good servant. City has taken those things in stride, did it really well. I don't think anyone as a City fan, I'm not worried about Sterling leaving. I know what he's capable of. I know he scored a lot of goals. I know half of them were tap-ins, and I saw how frustrating it was. He's an incredible player at getting into spaces, and you feel like he should score more goals, and he just frustrates you. So I don't know how he's going to do for Chelsea. It doesn't hurt me that he's gone. I mean, I liked him. We wish him well. That's great. Gabriel Jesus, another one, never could become the 9 he should be, but was a worker and was kind of like a really good version of Danny Welbeck, to be fair. A runner, a harrier, a harasser, would score wonderful goals, but not consistent enough for City. He was more of a 10 to 15 goal scorer versus a 15 to 25 goal scorer. And he played big parts in our biggest games, but just not going to be missed. I missed one other player, Julian Alvarez out of Boca, out of Argentina, is the replacement for Jesus. So City replaced those two strikers or attack force, whatever you want to call them, winger/striker, hybrid attackers, with two younger, hungrier, ready to play now finishers, both really good on the XG side, where Jesus and Sterling were negatives on the XG side, meaning they missed more chances than you'd expect. And Haaland and Alvarez score more than you'd expect. So that is just like a mentality shift that City fans are going to be like, oh my God, this is great. Because I think of your team who have two players who score more chances than you'd expect. Son scores is like +5. He's like he's the most plus player in the Premier League since he's been in the league. Basically means he's an incredible finisher.
Yeah. I have so many questions about what this means for the depth of City, what it means for Grealish and Foden and so on and so forth. But
don't worry about City.
Are going to have
keep moving.
so much time to talk about Manchester City staying at the top or near the top. Darwin Nunez comes in out of Benfica for Liverpool. For my money, a tremendous signing.
Not an interesting expensive one. Though. That was that was a big number.
He was 86 million pounds, I believe. So but you know what though, for all the frugalness that Family Sports Group can have at some points, they made no mistake. They identified him. They played against him in Champions League. He scored against them at Anfield, and they went, "That's our fucking guy." And similar to Haaland, they wrapped it up very, very early. Made no mistake. Didn't let anybody else come in and try to gazump them. They got their man.
Dear United fans, this is what the good teams do. They've got it all mapped out. They have thing 1, thing 2, thing 3. They have a price. They have a place. They get it done. They move on. If they miss, they go somewhere else. If a guy they don't want, if they can't get the guy they want, they don't do anything. They just go, okay, right? We're not going to pay for that guy. Just like the Kane thing. City didn't go and get some other striker they didn't need.
Yeah.
And City used to do that. We'd get like Wilfred Boney. I'm like, why the fuck do we have Wilfred Boney?
I almost felt like and we said this last year, like a Danny Ings would actually sort of make sense as a Band-Aid for City.
That
in the
would have
short
been
term.
okay. I think that would have been.
And nobody's saying he's a world beater, but you had to have a striker. But of course, now you've got a new shiny toy. So we're going to go into our predictions for top 4, for the relegation, for the whole table. But before that, we have to touch on something that is the biggest elephant in the room this season. There's a World Cup in the middle of the fucking season in November in Qatar, right? And so it's interesting because you do have, I've thought a lot about this. You have international breaks that happen twice, 3 times between October and November.
We won't have those.
You won't have those. Right. But you've got guys splintering all over the globe, right? You've got Argentina players going from London to Mexico to play a friendly or the Rose Bowl.
The thing is, Qatar's not that much out of the Eurozone.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is that you're central. Europe. Yeah, you're central. You're in one spot. And
except with no
and not everybody is going to go far, right? No. Like, do I expect South Korea to get out of the group stage? No, I don't, Sonny. I think you're going to come back to London and have a month off. So it's interesting to think about when you look at what the top 4 races are going to mean, how many players are going to miss that amount of time, how much of that amount of time are they actually going to miss? But there's one actual benefit I've thought even more about, and is, in a normal World Cup year, it would be ending right about now, right? It would be in the final quarterfinal stage or whatever. And so you don't have that. You do have a proper preseason. So you have all these players betting in. So 2 things. Harry Kane and all of the, the nailed on internationals for whatever country you want, go from the end of the season to basically 5 days off with their family to right into internationals and into a World Cup year, right? So they didn't have that. They got to have a proper offseason. Some of these guys for the first time in 5 years, right? So it's really interesting that there's a hunger amongst all of these big players and all these big clubs to get it going again, similar to how you and I were. We don't have fatigue from the World Cup. We're ready to go, baby.
Yeah.
So this is how the players feel as well. They're healthy. They're mentally rejuvenated.
Yeah, I mean, the guys look great. Like, Kane looks incredible right now. Like, unbelievable. I was like,
So
and so
I think that
these guys all look fit.
I think that you're basically starting at absolutely 0 from an injuries and fatigue perspective. And I think that that's really underrated when you've got the Euros or a World Cup year or something like that. So we'll really see come August what these teams look like they're made of. And obviously the transfer window is open for almost more than another full month by a few days. So there will be changes. There will be transfers in and out. But we're going to get a really good feel for what these teams' philosophies are, what their ethos, what they're all about. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the first few weeks of the season, obviously with that World Cup in the middle. With all the international breaks, I kind of don't hate it. I'm warming up to it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll be fine, and we'll all just be like, oh, this is amazing. Although watching a World Cup in the cold is going to suck. It's not going to make sense.
I did wish I was outside and drinking
right after Thanksgiving for the U.S.
Yeah.
I think we probably gave a little bit of short shrift to some of the transfers. I think Arsenal, everyone's moving up. I think just a general theme, you can go through a transfer list and see all the players that got transferred. It's probably better than us going through and going like, this team got this guy and this guy got this team. I think the thing that we were talking about before the show started is just the City-Liverpool arms race is lifting the entire Premier League. And then the Premier League being the healthiest of all the leagues, and we can get into Barcelona and some of the crazy stuff, like all the leagues in Europe are still clamoring. We have all this inflation. We've got all this stuff. And the Premier League is just like, we're good. We're kicking ass. And we've talked about this a couple times. Like to talk about the business of the league. So City and Liverpool are up high. They're the Yankees, Red Sox. And then you've got like your Oakland A's version, Billy Bean early version in Arsenal. And you've got like, your other team, your Minnesota Twins of Spurs, of like these teams that were trying to push. That's a shit example, but you know what I mean? These kind of teams that are trying to push up, but the whole league is lifted up. Where when I was doing my systems here, I was like, I like all these teams. And as I was listening to preview podcasts around Europe and England, you really can go through every single team, and I almost wanted to do this as an exercise. There's at least 2 players on every team that you'd be like, can you be on my team? Your voice went out, Mike.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I could go through it, be like, oh man, I really love Moutinho and Wolves, or wouldn't Sa be a great goalkeeper for City as a backup? I mean, there's just a guy on every team. We love Basuma, and now Basuma's on your team. I'm like,
I do love Basuma, and he is cleared of all charges, by the way.
Yeah, well, we have a new friend on the sexual exploits team that just signed for West Ham. We're not sure what his name is. We'll wait for John Champion to tell us.
And we're waiting on the I guess the results of the investigation of the 29-year-old from North London who's a World Cup expected international.
I think it's in London while black as the charge.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly understandable.
Sadly,
but
unfortunately,
everybody sort of looked at Tottenham like, you got a bunch of World Cup players. And everybody's like, well, Ben Davies is 29. I'm like, Ben Davies is a virgin. I want to be completely clear about that. Would you have sex with Ben Davies? No.
Yes.
Nobody would. Okay, stop.
I'm ready.
But no, let's talk about our predictions, right? So it will come as no surprise that for the second year in a row, we both have Manchester City taking the title. I wanted badly to knock them off this perch. But then I remembered not just Haaland, because they score goals in bunches. So will Haaland make them more prolific? Yes.
Predominantly, unless he gets hurt.
Like significantly more prolific? Honestly, I don't think so.
No.
Right? But I was like, we could absorb the Haaland blow. But Calvin Phillips is going to be a really good signing for them.
Yeah. Any bad performances City had were when Fernandinho played.
Right.
Because he was 38.
So I think the rationale I started to use and to talk myself into was they're going to care so much more about Champions League that they could see some points slip away in the second half of the season. And no, it doesn't matter. They're
the stat that I want to point out. There was a really good article in The Athletic that they were talking about the levels of Liverpool and City.
Mm-hmm.
City set the record, and they have 9 of the top 10 places of XG differential. Last season was the highest ever, 73. They had 100-point seasons, but last season was the highest. Now, they didn't have 100 goals, but the difference that the last 2 leagues that City have won, the difference is City don't give up anything. They give up the least amount of shots, and there's something called field tilt, which is the amount of time spent in the attacking zone versus your defending zone. And City have now set the record at that. And that's what Liverpool was missing. Liverpool now has the field tilt, which is the percentage of time in the offensive third that no team has. So they used to go up and down, but now they park in your zone, and you can't give up goals if you're never in the attacking zone. So City never have to defend. They don't give up any shots, and they're just on top of you the whole time. Will Haaland make a difference there? I don't think they'll all of a sudden score more or less. It'll still be the same. But I think what will happen is perception. It'll feel like when City's down a goal that they'll get it. Whereas sometimes it didn't feel like it was coming, and it was like always some weird cut in from Mahrez, and you're like, well, if that game he shoots over the bar, or it took 3 chances to score 1, but I think now City will score 1 and 2, or it'll be something weird like that.
So and then I think that they'll get down less, right?
Yes,
and I think that they'll be on the front foot and up 1-0 more.
More than they already are.
Times is if they're playing a Brentford or a Crystal Palace or even a Brighton, if they score early, they're fine. But the longer the game goes, it's like a boxing match. The longer the underdog stays around and doesn't hit the canvas, the more he can sucker punch. Right.
I also think there'll be a lot of like big. They'll put up crooked numbers. They didn't. Yeah. They weren't blowing anyone out. I think they'll put up more 5s. There were some games late where they did score a lot, but I just have a feeling that Pep wouldn't let the speed of Sterling go if he didn't think that run in behind with pace on the break was going to get picked up by Haaland. Because Haaland is 6'4", but runs like Raheem Sterling.
Yep.
That's the fucking thing. That's insane. He makes Sterling's runs.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't need him.
Right. So no, anyway. And to your point, I do think that they will score more. And like I said, not tremendous amount more, but you said from the XG perspective, they're going to be positive players, not negative players, right? And so you've got a little bit of Sonny, if you will. So yeah. So
I'd
no surprise there.
Sonny. And then
not having any hot takes.
You go ahead. You go ahead. You've got a hot take.
My hot take is coming in at number 2. 6 new signings and maybe 2 more on the way. Every position has 2-fold players who are a top half Premier League roster. We have 2 top 10 Premier League rosters. We're going to be back in Champions League. We're going to be in the Cups, but Tottenham Hotspur is going to finish 2nd in the league. July 28th,
us all the way.
July 28th, 2022. You heard us first.
Listen, I don't have them.
I have to take City out, but I do think we can take Liverpool.
I have Liverpool there, and I think that's only respect for an opponent. Like, Big Boppy just made it to the Hall of Fame in baseball, a man I loathed more than Satan himself. But I had respect for the satanic Big Boppy. He did hit 400 in the World Series. He can die in a fire, but I definitely was petrified when he was up. So
gunshot.
That's how I feel about Liverpool. I always want them to lose. I hate that they sort of have this rope-a-dope style where you're like, they're playing badly, and then they win 3-0, and you're like, man, this fucking team. So
I wonder about the difference between Firmino and Nunez, and if they move Firmino,
then Firmino's phased out. He's already phased out.
See, here's where
what happens. The thing is, Jota can handle being a second fiddle,
right? But what my point was if you don't lose Firmino to Juventus or whoever, you've got 5 subs this year. You can bring him on as a locksmith in the 75th minute, and he will produce. I hate how much Bobby Firmino feels to me a lot like Ortiz used to, not in the same level, but he's your closer almost, right? And so
he is a closer.
If you don't have that ability, Nunez is an out and out number 9. So
and we don't know. There is unknowns. There
are unknowns, but what I think about is it might be too much all go and not enough in that creativity spot.
Yeah. Well, they still have Thiago who gets hurt every single time.
Right, exactly.
If they lose, they have less margin for error. They're still really good, but if one of their big guys, if they lose Alexander-Arnold, if they lose Van Dijk, if they lose Salah, they're not as much depth.
Salah, I think, is the most expendable now because you've got all of these wingers. I'm not saying that. I shouldn't say
they play differently. They would have to adjust.
Understood.
They adjusted, and he played badly down the stretch.
Yes.
But Mane picked them up and carried them home.
Right. And so now you're replacing Mane with, I guess, what would be half Jota, half Diaz, and then obviously Nunez through the middle. So listen, me taking Spurs over Liverpool is 2 things. A, homerism. Understood. B, right, it's not an insult to Liverpool at all. It's what I believe to be a compliment to Spurs, saying they're almost at that Yankee Red Sox level that we talked about.
It's
right?
really cool. Yeah. And then we have a difference here in the top 4. I have Chelsea, and I'll tell you why. Still have a lot of belief in Tuchel, despite the fact that he's too honest and creates problems. We can litigate the Lukaku problem where he basically set his team on fire. But I still think he'll find a way to make do. I think, we talked about these players they struck out with Bernie, with Bowley, and basically their whole front office is gone, and it's Tuchel as GM and manager with the owner, and they're making the call on things, and that's caused a lot of problems. We had a whole episode about Granitskaya, Czech's gone, so all of Chelsea's been hollowed out as they transition to the new owner and get all the Soviet money out. Yes, I'm saying Soviet. But this is a vote for Tuchel and a belief in institutional play. And I think people don't realize how fucking good Koulibaly is. They now have their Van Dijk, their Diaz, where they have this Cadillac defender who can run and is on the ball. He's the right age. He's 30 years old. They have enough replacements. What they do with their lone army, maybe this is a moment that we have a Frank Lampard-esque thing where you're like, oh, Chelsea are down. And all of a sudden Tuchel goes, Conor Gallagher. Huh. He's pretty good. And then you do have Mason Mount, who I think is a world-class player. Do they have strikers in the traditional sense? No, but Chelsea never do, and they win anyway. So it's a belief. It's an institutional belief in Tuchel.
So
go ahead on United.
No, let's stay on Chelsea because I have them actually in the 7th spot. I think that they're going to have a tough year, and it's for that exact reason you said. They have signed Sterling. They have signed Koulibaly, who I did not actually realize was 31. I thought he was like 26, 27.
But he's African 31.
I understand. But so
he might be 35.
Yeah, right. So I think
that's like the same as Dominican 31.
There's just so much upheaval there. And like you said, I think that Bowley and Tuchel
is it Burley? I don't know his name. Is it Burley? Bowley? The
owner? Bowley. I think it could take on a Steinbrenner, Billy Martin sort of relationship because he didn't take him. He didn't choose him, right? He inherited him. Now, this is to piggyback on you. I am not criticizing Thomas Tuchel. He is a Champions League winning manager. He is phenomenal. However, as you said,
the Club World Cup, as the Chelsea fans like to tell.
Yeah. He is a squeaky wheel, and there's no hierarchy, as you said. So
anymore, nothing.
Bowley's going to be taking these calls, and he's like, "Who the fuck is this German guy who won't shut the fuck up?"
Or just has no bedside manner. He's just like, "Why are you calling me? I am coaching team right now. You need to hire someone so that you don't have to talk to me." You're like,
right, exactly. And if you do look at, they did get Koulibaly. I understand. Look at who they missed, right? Rafinha, De Ligt, not Sterling, excuse me. Dembele. Let's see. There was like 6 names. And now I'm blanking on them. It was Richarlison, Jesus. So there's a lot that is just. There's a swing and a miss. For the first time, the shine has kind of worn off Chelsea to other players. And by the way, they have Champions League football. It's not like they're not fighting the battle Arsenal are fighting to try and get players to come in.
It's just instability, right?
It's extreme instability. And so I just worry about, what this season. I'm not saying long term. I think Chelsea are a title contender as early as next season.
And the guy owns the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are one of the better run teams in baseball.
Yes, but he hasn't gotten his sea legs under him yet. So I think that Chelsea will falter as a function of that. Because again, if you stand still, you're taking 2 steps back in this league where we are right now. And so I think that that's the case. So going to where I do have number 4, this was a really, really tough one for me. And I don't want to make it sound like my bias was the difference, but I have Manchester United at 4. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about, where Ronaldo's going to go, this and that. I think their business has been really, really underrated in this transfer window. So the question I have is they had a bad year last year. If you give the keys back to Bruno Fernandes, like we were talking about before we got on air, and you have him and Christian Eriksen link up in the middle of the field, I don't care where Ronaldo plays, right? And so I think that the other thing that when Ten Hag comes in, he's rejuvenated a lot of these young attacking players, the Martials, the Rashfords, not the Greenwoods.
I don't even know what happened to that guy. Yeah. That sounds.
By the way, Jadon Sancho is still on this club, right? And so you've gotten rid of Paul Pogba, you've gotten rid of Cavani, and all of these big, stupid, sexy Manchester United-ish names. But you've got hungry players there. You've got a really hungry manager who's good. And I think that they're going to be a problem. Lisandro Martinez from Ajax as well is a really good signing at center back. And so I think that United, for everybody loves to what's the rumors of their demise are greatly over-exaggerated.
Yeah, right? I mean, they had an absolutely catastrophic season last season. And they were in a shout for 4th with 10 games to go.
Yeah.
And they were awful with a coach who nobody liked, and they haven't been coached. They literally, the Solskjaer years,
coach now.
They literally have not been coached for 3 years.
And we talked about this towards the end of the season a lot. We said their March schedule, like, what was it? I forget exactly
when. They had 10 games that they should have won all of them.
All of them. And we're like, oh my goodness, going into April, they're going to be 6-7 points clear of everybody for 4th.
But they yacked them.
Yeah. And so that's the point. We're not telling them that they have to do better against Liverpool, Spurs, United, City.
They
top 6.
Cannot be 9-goal difference against Liverpool. That cannot happen again.
Okay, you know what? I'm telling you it can, because if you beat Southampton and Wolves and Leeds and Nottingham Forest, fucking who cares? Because 12 points is better than 9 goals, right?
Well, this takes you to the next group, right? Like,
yes,
I think I've got Arsenal in that spot, and you have Arsenal in that spot as
I do.
well. We both have Arsenal at 5, and I think that's a testament to your sort of respect of them because
Yes.
they've had good business. I think they did falter down the stretch, but I think fundamentally we both believe in Arteta mostly. Like at least there's a direction.
Yeah, no, there most certainly is.
He fucked off Aubameyang in a power struggle. He's won all the wars within the club. It seems that he and Edu are connected. He got all the guys he wanted. He got the freaking Manchester City guys he wanted so that he can just go, I don't teach this guy how to play. I know what Jesus is going to bring. I know what Zinchenko's going to bring. When something goes wrong, I'll just put Zinni in and he'll know what to do. I don't have to fucking teach these clowns.
Yeah. And I think one other thing that was
still
not
the youngest
case,
team in the league.
I think, one thing that was not the case early last year, he's got the fans on side too. Not that that's a huge thing, but it's not nothing, right? If there's a couple of bad performances, they're not going to be calling for his head just yet.
Oh no, they will. They will.
No, well, my point is he's got more rope than he had this time last year by quite a margin.
I think the stink of the faltering down the stretch really stinks. But what did I say to you the other day? I think they have gone on this wilderness trip and they're now back at late stage Wenger. They could have just had Wenger all this time instead of firing him, but they're now back at Wenger where they're clearly not going to win the league and they'll connive, beat shitty teams, play them off the park to make top 4, top 5.
So I agree with the end result being late stage Wenger, right? But I don't agree with how they get there because they seem, we said this at times last year, they're actually a little bit more reminiscent to me of an early Pochettino team. Not quite the unstoppable White Hart Lane clubs.
But they don't have Kane.
No, but the question is how much, what percentage of Kane can Jesus give you, right? I'm not saying it's 100. I'm not saying it's close. But if it's 50% of what Harry Kane was to those Pochettino teams, you're right where you belong.
I think the key player for them, you and I both agree on this, Odegaard is a fucking stud.
Yeah.
He's so fucking good. With him floating around, Saka to Jesus. I think the issue that's really hard and why strikers don't play well under Pep or historically haven't is it's a shit job to play striker in that team. You have to run and make runs, and you never get on the ball, and you have to always be. It's just a thankless job, and so that's why Zlatan didn't like it. That's why Samuel Eto'o didn't like it. That's why Henry was like, "I just want to do my thing." He's like, "Stand on the fucking wing and stay there until it's time to move. Until then, shut the fuck up. I'm doing this the Pep way." So. They don't have enough. I think they need another Odegaard actually, and we'll see if Vieira is this guy from Portugal.
I'm interested
I haven't
because
seen it.
It's
so honestly, midfield dominant. Is what I'm saying.
That was so early in the summer that we sort of forget about it. But he was sort of a quick signing out of nowhere, and
he's supposed to be very
Arsenal
good.
fans on the internet are quite enjoyable, right? Spurs signed Yves Bissouma, which undoubtedly was. I mean, you can't say it wasn't fantastic business, right? For especially what they got him for and all that.
It's nothing.
I'm not going to have to convince you, right? And he was a long-time Arsenal target. Arsenal fans are excited about the prospect of bringing him in. There's a clip that went around of Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV saying, "Oh, I really want Bissouma, this and that." And so you can't tell me you didn't want him, guys. But you go out and you basically in the middle of the night signed Fabio Vieira, who was relatively speaking an unknown from Porto. But the more you sort of learn about him, because everybody goes, "Oh, who the fuck is this guy Arsenal just got?" He's a facilitator and he's interesting. So,
but this is where that 5 sub thing comes in. We were going to talk about it later, but just like you need more for the big teams. You don't need to feel like, oh, how do we play these two guys together? There's going to be time for all these guys to play because the 5 sub thing is really going to allow teams to gun hard, run. Like I think what will happen for Spurs is your 4 wing backs, they'll all play in the same game.
I actually agree with that.
All the time. Yeah. Like Perisic will run the first half.
We haven't even touched on the fact that they signed Ivan Perisic. Can we talk about that for a second?
He's 32 years old. Come on.
He runs like a 22-year-old. So we both got Arsenal at 5.
Yeah, I have United at 6th. And that's not the thing is like United at 6th is not that they're bad. I just think that the whole top 6, even I feel like I'm disrespecting West Ham. The whole top half of the league, it's all really good. And I had a really hard time saying, oh, Man United is worse than Arsenal. It's not that they're worse than Arsenal. It's just that I feel more confident and know more about Arsenal than I do Man United. Like,
that's fair.
Man United could finish in 4th easily, and Chelsea could finish in 6th, or Arsenal could finish in 4th. If any of those guys just take a step up and all of a sudden Ben White becomes this play out of the back defending kind of guy, or any of these guys step up, or Saka becomes Thierry Henry, these things can happen. Like,
almost certainly.
Or Rashford is just like, dude, I'm scoring 25 this year. That's it.
And I think that the main thing here is that the margins, like you said, there are unknowns, but the margins are so small between, frankly, 3 and 6, right?
Yeah. And at this point, you have to vote for coaching. That's why I put Chelsea in 4th. I was like, Tuchel's better than Arteta, and he's better than Ten Hag. That's what I'm voting on. So let's move on. This is where it starts getting fun. I've got Newcastle at 7.
I like that.
And that
we all know they're coming, right?
Yeah, that is just an optimism call. It's just like Guimaraes the whole year. They were in the top 6, 7 from when all those players came on in January. They got the great and famous, powerful Sven Botman. I've never seen. He's a left-footed center back. Ooh, he does stuff. Everyone wanted him, but Newcastle got him. Okay, he's there. They have not really signed that big striker that you're thinking of yet.
No, but as of today, here, wouldn't this be interesting? Timo Werner would be.
Yes, they are linked to everyone.
And we have to remind everybody, we're recording this on July 28th. There's 32 days left in the transfer window. So this is going to be outdated in a month for sure. But that's all we can do to, you can only play the guys in front of you, sort of thing. Oh, so, I had that thought kind of earlier today.
That would be amazing. Newcastle would explode.
Oh, God, that would be funny.
But he wants to go to the Champions League. But it may be that he might just go, you know what? None of these teams can give it to me.
Right.
But Newcastle will give me the money.
Mm-hmm.
And he may just go, I'll do that. Yeah, they don't really have – they got Pope. They signed Target. Yeah,
I like Pope a lot. I think he's going to be a great fantasy keeper, which is why I took him the other night. Hey.
Nothing crazy yet from Newcastle. I think it's a consolidation season, really. I think Guimaraes is an incredible player, and we'll see more from Newcastle in that regard. And this is really is Brighton, Newcastle, or West Ham better than Newcastle yet? West Ham, every one of their play. I had do you want to talk? Well, we're sort of stepping.
So I have West Ham at 6, right? I have them qualifying for Europe.
Yeah.
And you've got them at 8. I mean, your guy Bowen, they just scare me. I don't like playing them, right? Like they're just really they're. If you had to think about and this is not an insult to West Ham at all, a best of the rest team. Where they're just sound all the way through. You could poke holes in pretty much every team underneath West Ham, I think, that we haven't mentioned yet. But they're just really solid all the way through. And
with a great coach who gets them to that level is the only problem, right?
So I don't like them. I respect them. And I see them taking points off of 3 or so of the teams ahead of them over the course of the year. But what they do really well is they win the games they're supposed to win. And that's we've said this many times in the previous seasons, that gets you an invitation to the dance. Do you get to dance with a really pretty girl? Not all the time, but you're in the door, right? So that's the point.
For them it's depth though. Like they cannot play the way they played last year, where they ran the same 11 guys out there game after game, Thursday, Sunday, making a Europa League final. I think he tried to kill Mikel Antonio, but he was too strong to be killed. So they do sign Gianluca Scamacca from Sassuolo. I don't know much about him. I mean, this is, players coming in from Sassuolo. I know has been a good team, an overachieving team, a punching above their weight team in Serie A. And then this defender, Nayef Aguirre from Rennes, bought for 30 million, unfortunately already did his ankle. So he may come in after the World Cup at this point. So maybe that's a blessing in disguise, but he was a really good, classy defender. The French always have good defense because no one can score and they play with 2 defenders. But we'll see where they are. They don't really move. They don't move the dial for me. I think they're right where they could be. Things could go badly for them. And then, of course, I have my beloved Brighton at 9 because it's Brighton and they have the best English coach in the league. And they replace Basuma with Caicedo, who came on in the back half of the season. And then it's just like, this is a vote for Potter thing. He's the best of this group of players that I just think will find players that I don't know about. I'm just like, oh, what the fuck?
I'm changing one of mine on the fly. I'm putting Brighton at 10. Because you know what? I thought about it and I was like, I've got.
Yeah.
That was the only team we agreed on outside of the top 5, I believe, in the exact same place, but I just changed it.
Yeah, and
I have Brighton in the 10 spot now.
I think the tricky thing will be, can one of their strikers between Welbeck, my friend Mopé, Trossard, can one of them just be more consistent and reliable? If one of those guys makes a jump from the 8 to 12 goal range to the 15 to 18 range, all of a sudden Brighton are fucking incredible. And there'll be an adjustment period. I think they didn't lose any games on the road, which was incredible for a team at that level. But we'll see. I mean, they didn't buy anyone. So they're still kind of where they are. But this is, again, within this group, it's a vote for saying Brighton has the best manager between Palace and Aston Villa.
So, yeah, I agree with that. I think I want to bring it back to, because there's this group that we're going to get into, the Newcastles, the Villas, the Brightons, the Leicesters, the Palaces, sort of that. Yeah. We keep hearing, especially going back to even to West Ham, Armando Broja's name, who was at Southampton last year, who was a thorn in my ass. I don't know about you.
Chelsea don't want to sell him.
Chelsea have done kind of the rope-a-dope with him. They do, they don't, they do, they don't. And offers have come in of relatively high value, right? I think West Ham offered like 35 million. He would be perfect on West Ham. I mean, I know they got scum, so they're probably out.
Well, he's English and he's Albanian. He might as well be a hitman. He might as well be coming for Liam Neeson. He may be one of the guys that's trying to kill Liam Neeson. He's the big boss. Yeah, he's the young guy who has to fight him.
Right, exactly. So I'm curious if Chelsea, because I don't think Chelsea will play him, despite the fact that he's probably the answer to their striker issues.
Well, so was Tammy Abraham. So was whatever. I mean,
right, but they'd always rather have the
Chelsea,
shiny thing
so
in the
they have
shop
to
window.
find a broken striker from another team, or bring in an amazing striker from another team, and then.
But it's weird that they won't sell him, right? They're like, no, he's ours. Well, then play him. Also, no. Like, wait a minute. What?
It's the same thing happening with my favorite player, Mr. Liam Delap, who got to see him play.
And they also turned down an offer for him.
Yeah, he was supposed to move. So Southampton's trying to work those angles. I think what's happened with Chelsea and City at this point is if the team is rejecting a kid, people come after them and they just go, I don't know how this guy is, but he's awesome. So I'm just going to try and get him.
Yeah.
Just in case something happens. I don't know. I'm trusting that they scouted him.
Let's go lightning round through a little bit of the middle of the table. Let's spend some time at the bottom.
Let me hit on Palace. Yeah. Palace were the best XG team in the league. They were almost the top half. So this is a vote for them to take that positive level and move up some. I don't know how they replace Gallagher, but Gallagher did fade in the back half of the season, and they have a lot of cool, young, hungry South London kids, and Zaha keeps them going.
Yeah, as I said, do you want to know how they replace Gallagher? Eze is healthy again.
Yeah.
And that's going to be huge. He's going to have a great year for them.
So then we have Leicester, who we're both concerned about. They would have been in the upper discussion, but we think they're sort of holding steady. I think if this team falters, Rodgers is in trouble. They haven't made a signing yet.
Well, that's right. They're having a very Tottenham window in the sense that means two things. They are in a situation financially for whatever reason. I actually have not looked into this enough, but they have to sell to buy. So what that does is you're guaranteed to have teams circling like vultures for your top players, like Fofana, like Madison, like Barnes. So if
they can't lose any of those guys.
That's what I mean. If you lose one or two of them, you're not going to be able to reinvest that money and have a quality player that B beds in with your team to not get off to a rocky start. You're just going to.
I do think that the thing we identified, that Schmeichel was bad, I think he's finally leaving.
Yes, I believe he is. And he's more of a heart and soul piece. And
Yeah, he went to Nice. He's gone. Agrees to join Nice.
Yes.
So they'll have a new keeper, which is good because they need one because he was bad.
Yeah, but they're just stagnant. Jamie Vardy's old. He's healthy again now. We'll see for how long. But he's really long.
Maybe they're just like Daka didn't bet in. Iheanacho's coming forward, our 9.5.
Right, but we're already at August, right? And you haven't even been rumored to get anyone of substance.
But maybe they're just going to bank on that second half of Madison and just move on from there. Villa, we like everything they did. It's just there's a lot of I have a lot of distrust about the back half of the season from Gerrard. Everything looks right, but I don't like what Coutinho did to the team. It became very Coutinho focused, and it lost some of the cohesion of the team. He's stripped Mings of the captaincy and given it to McGinn.
I saw
that was weird, but I get it because McGinn is a heart and soul guy. They did have some really good signings that sort of that were very early on, and they're considered high level players, but I don't know.
Quick on Villa, I think Emi Buendia has a great bounce back year after a real tough year, because it was one of those where he was like, wait, I'm usually the Coutinho type. And he didn't. It was similar to this thing I was saying about Liverpool. There's only one ball and they can't share it well enough. So I think he has a way to kind of bet in a little bit more and have a lot more of an impact. Yeah. We both have Brentford at 13. I have never I've never said anything nice about Brentford, right? No, I'm in love with these guys, but I am a bit worried.
Yeah, it's a lot.
They were stagnant for a large part of the second half of the season. And when they got Christian Eriksen, they went to another level. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's a huge Danish hole in the middle of their midfield. And I don't know if they're going to be able to replace it, but I do hope that they'll be able to do enough to avoid the relegation race.
Yeah, they'll fight and bring themselves forward. They did get a replacement keeper because remember what I said? They fell apart when they lost their keeper. They replaced him.
Because Raya is back as well.
Yeah, Raya's back, but that was also coincided with Eriksen. So maybe it was a defensive thing.
Sure.
And then I've got Everton. Everton I'm worried. I don't think Frank Lampard's a good coach.
I'm very worried.
I, in fact, would rather swap Southampton for Everton because I trust Hasenhüttl more in a weird way. I might have to do some parenting because Aveline's home.
Hi, Aveline. Well, let's talk about Everton because so Wolves, Leeds, there's a handful of teams. We're getting into who is going to get dragged into the relegation race, starting with, for me, Everton.
They're not going down.
You sold Richarlison. And
they're not going down. That team's too good.
I don't think they're that good. I think Anthony Gordon is going to be asked to answer. He's going to be asked to cash a lot more checks than he can, really handle. And Dele Alli, I'll love him till the day I die, isn't the answer either. No. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is fine, but if he's just the only singer in that band, is he really that good?
Yeah.
So
it won't be.
To your point, Super Frank Lampard is not so super anymore.
Yeah, I still think they're too good to go down, especially when we look at someone like Bournemouth who don't have the depth, or they have the depth, but I don't like Scott Parker. I don't know where they are. And I think about, Nottingham Forest, new team, first-time coach. I want him to stay up. I don't know. And then the other one is Leeds. I
just want Leeds to stay. If Leeds have the ability to, and we have a special appearance from the one, the only, the Aveline. But if Leeds get relegated, I'm not sure we see an American in the Premier League for a decade. And I'm worried about that. They brought in Aronson, they brought in Tyler Adams, obviously Jesse Marsh at the helm. And this is complete American homerism saying they'll finish 16th. God willing, they'll stay up. It's a full-on Ted Lasso tale.
Yeah. I think the issue I have with them is there's a Bielsa burnout in the team. A lot of those guys they haven't replaced. It's still ailing. It's still the same dudes. They were terrible without Phillips, and he's gone. I mean, is Adams supposed to replace Phillips?
Well, think about this.
Supposed to replace, and Aronson's supposed to replace Rafinha. This is a
Phillips
big ask.
and Rafinha are gone, and that's huge. The only thing I will say is you're getting a healthy Bamford back shortly. No, but you know what? He bags goals. He doesn't miss sitters. And I think that there's something to be said for that. Yes. So having him back will help. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of miles on those legs across the lineup. And I'm not worried about them. I very clearly have them in the relegation race, but I have some some very fond moments of betting on Leeds last year, and the American angle. I've got to see them keep their heads above water by just this much.
Yeah, and I don't have Fulham in that group because they were so good in the championship, and we'll see if Marco Silva has learned his lessons or whether he burns out. Usually he has a real big push and it looks great, and then he fades. So we'll see where he comes in with Fulham. Fulham with your boy Harry Wilson and Mitrovic, and they spent so much money on that team last season, and they haven't added anyone, but they don't think they need to because they're really loaded already. Yeah. So they're in that sort of position, so they're doing fine there. I'm less worried about them. I have Wolves pulled down there, and this is a function of XG against. This team was the luckiest team in the history of luck, and if they don't start scoring goals, maybe your boy Podence, maybe Neto, maybe this is Moutinho and Neves, they shouldn't have been down here anyway, but this is a question, and we'll have our buddy from the draft, Kevin, that's the name of his team, on the show to talk Leeds.
Alex, our buddy Alex Brooks.
Alex will come on and tell us about Leeds. He seemed to be well entrenched and know more. And then Forest, as much as I'm our championship correspondent, I don't know enough about this team. I didn't get to follow along with them as much as I would have liked to. I know Spence made a difference for them. They have a guy, Brendan Johnson, who's supposed to be a great young player who stepped up. But where they are, they got an incredible striker for Union Berlin, who's everyone believes is a great signing, but he has to adapt to England. He's got to score goals. Is he Ivan Toney or is he Mitrovic? These are the questions, right? If he's Ivan Toney, that's great. I have a lot of like I know we touched on Brentford. I think you and I both really trust the process with Brentford, and we trust the process with those teams. I don't trust the process with Forest. They have a good manager, but is he a level too far? Again, I have Bournemouth going down. I don't trust Dominic Solanke. However, if he scores 20 goals, then all of a sudden, they have a Jermaine Defoe. Fine. Yeah, right. Or they have a Callum Wilson. They'll be fine. Could he become that? That's the best case. So I don't. Yep. It's good to have. The rule of thumb is put 2 promoted teams in your drop zone and then figure out the third one.
Right. That's essentially what we both did. Right. So we both have Bournemouth coming in last. You've got Forest at 19. I've got Fulham. I want to believe in Forest. That's all it is. You know why?
Of course. It's more fun.
Coming into April, all of these clubs are going to be real close. So you've got Bournemouth in last, Nottingham Forest 19th, and Leeds in the final spot for you. I've got Everton, as I mentioned, going down for the first time in Premier League history, and then Fulham.
There's 19th. No way. There's no way.
Look, man, I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't see any reason for optimism there. What you could see, we talked a lot about last season, was
they just have to be better than 3 teams.
I know, but I don't think
they're better than 3 teams.
I think they're better than 2. But but I think that we talked a lot about last season how this year there's going to be 20 attacking football teams with that attacking mindset, right? Well, I think Frank Lampard gets fired by Halloween and they bring in
what did I say? The sword of Daishakles?
Yes, the sword of Daishakles. That's right.
He's hanging over everything.
That's beautiful. I forgot about that. Yes, the
sword of Daishakles. So Sean Dyche is out of work and hanging around for whatever team is just like, please don't get us relegated. Like, could he get the Leeds job? He could absolutely get that Leeds job. Like, they're down. They fire him right going into the World Cup and just like,
and that's what I was going to say. There's so many different ways that the World Cup is going to affect this season. And one of them is that every team is going to be able to hit the pause button on November 10th, roughly, and say, okay, where are we? Where do we want to be? And how do we get even close to that?
Did they change the transfer window? Is it still going to be?
No, it's still, I think it's like a day off or something like that. But yeah, it's roughly, I think it's September 1st instead of August 31st. But yeah.
I think it's rad. By the way, not for nothing, Friday, the championship season starts.
Yeah.
Sunday is the Community Shield.
That's why we're doing our season preview, because the season is underway.
10 days.
Will be in California this week, hanging out with you, son of a bitch. So we're going to hang out. I don't know if we're going to be able to do a show. Yeah, well, we're going to figure it out. Well, I don't know if we'll be able to do a show. I don't know when the next show we're going to do is, but it will be soon. We are excited to be able to soon review the Community Shield and preview the first match week of the 2022-2023 Premier League season. the year of the Hotspur. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited. I'm happy to be back. Laurent, let's get out of here.
That was the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast with Mike Salerno and Laurent Cortines. We are the football wing of the forever growing Chop Sports Network. We record on Tuesdays and Fridays normally. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Apple or wherever you listen, please rate and review the show. It makes a difference. Barcelona are stealing money.